Hi, Amy Shaw here. It's September 1st, 2016. This evening I want to talk to you about curses. I feel like this is such an important topic because I don't think there's anybody on this planet who hasn't experienced it, and I think it's so much more prevalent than people really realize. So my intent here is to bring some education as well as to offer some practical solutions on how to protect yourself from curses and how to stop engaging in cursing if you yourself are doing it. A lot of people do it not even knowing that they're doing it. So first of all, what I want to talk about is what exactly a curse is. So from a shamanic point of view, a curse is anything that creates what we would call cognitive dissonance. Now, contrast that with resonance. So if something resonates with you, that means it's in harmony or in congruence with your state of being as you already are, how you know yourself. When something is dissonant, it creates sort of a confusion. It creates sort of a hang up, I guess you could say, in your mind and your psychological construct, your way of knowing yourself. When we say something creates cognitive dissonance, that's really what we mean. It's something that sort of causes you to stumble or to step back out of your peaceful, usual way of knowing yourself and causes a disturbance or a disruption in your normal, natural state of being, of who you are, who you were created to be. So there's a lot of examples, and I'm going to go through several of them, of what cursing looks like, because I think a lot of people think, when they think of curses, they think of, somebody there with a voodoo doll sticking pins in it. That can be one form of curse. All cursing really comes from intention. So that's the key to any curse is intention. Now, sometimes these intentions can be completely unconscious or subconscious, meaning that the cursing person doesn't even realize what their intention is. But the root of all curses is intention. So the most common type of cursing in our culture actually happens in childhood, a parent to a child. So an example of this would be the parent that says to the child, "You're so lazy, you're going to grow up and amount to nothing. You're not going to accomplish anything in your life." Well, if this is a pattern and the child's repeatedly hearing this over and over, this is a really, really serious curse that's happening. It's actually creating this dissonance in this child who's going to grow up, and a curse at this level potentially can even cause death. It can be fatal, because what happens is that it can create a condition of addiction, alcoholism, suicidality, self-destructive behaviors. It can manifest itself as all sorts of mental disorders and all sorts of things, and even can manifest as physical illness in the body. So that level of curse is very, very serious, and it's common. Another type of cursing would be, I'll give you an example. After my third awakening, I became very, very energetically sensitive. And so one day I pulled up on a four-way stop sign, and I was the only one there, and there was somebody to my right that was coming to the stop sign. I'd been sitting there long enough to where it was obviously my turn to go, but I waited, I hesitated to see if that person was actually going to stop. Well, as soon as I noticed that he was slowing down, I said, okay, it's my turn, so I started to go. Well, he just came to a really quick stop and then hit his gas really hard, so it wasn't really his turn. He knew it wasn't his turn because he didn't really come to a full stop, but he went, and I had to actually slam my brakes to avoid hitting him. Well, our cars were close enough that he looked over at me and made direct eye contact and then flipped me off. Well, I immediately felt that in my gut, in my solar plexus, right? I just, ooh, ow. I mean, his intent towards me was horrible. So I had to actually sort of do a cleansing, a clearing of that, because I felt it in my body and I didn't really want it to harm me. But that is another type of curse, and it's a common one. We experience that a lot when we're out and about and people cut us off or flip us off or get angry at us. You can sort of feel that tension in your body that they create from their intent towards you. Another type of curse that I want to talk about is it often comes from psychic people. Now, I mentioned this to another shaman one time, that I've experienced a lot of cursing through psychic people, and he told me, well, maybe you just aren't resonating with them. I think it doesn't always come down to resonance and dissonance. Sometimes it's just the way that people are. And now when I say that, not just for myself, but here's another example of a psychic. I had a woman tell me that she went to a psychic had told her that her son was going to die. Well, it caused so much anxiety and sickness, physical sickness in her, just panic and anxiety, that it really acted as a curse. A psychic should not be telling you this type of stuff, whether they're professional and you pay them or they're not. There has to be some kind of restraint in the information that you tell people and how that you tell them, even if they ask you certain things you just shouldn't say. And that's definitely, I would say, something that psychic should not say, because although you might be able to see something occurring in the future, there's always an infinite number of probabilities that can alter that future in some way. And so the second you sort of tell somebody what the future is going to be and then they hold on to that expectation, that can actually create for them a cursed situation, a cognitive dissonance, and a sickness. And for this poor woman, it definitely made her physically ill. So I had to tell her, look, you were actually cursed, and help her remove that curse. I had a similar situation happen to me. I went to a weekend training, and several of us were staying in a house on the property together where the training was at. It was a real remote location. So several of us stayed together at a house. Well, immediately when I got to the house, this woman and really this again, sometimes this isn't intentional. I really don't believe that it was intentional on her part to be cursing people, but nevertheless, it's what was happening. So, and I think she was motivated sort of out of her ego state, really, right? And her own maybe insecurity, her own shadow stuff she hadn't worked through. So she had this real inflated ego. And as soon as I got there, she proceeded to tell me that she's a psychic and all her training. And, here we are at this training together. And I think she was just trying to sort of like fit her place in there and, like a peacock or something, fluff herself up to make herself seem like she was really special, like she belonged there, right? Or I don't really know, but she did definitely have this inflated ego. Right away, the first 3 seconds of walking in the house, she proceeds to tell me she's a psychic and all this, and she has all this training and all this. And for the next 2 hours, I'm not kidding you, she went on and on telling me all about myself, and how this and that and this and that, and I had a demon and this and that. Now, this was uninvited information. I didn't ask her to tell me. I didn't say, oh, you're a psychic? Tell me all. I didn't ask her for any of that. She just basically blasted me with it the second I came through the door and spent the next 2 hours proceeding to go on and on and on and tell me all this stuff about myself that she supposedly was seeing. And, it was bombarding me so much. And, here I am trying to be like polite. I mean, we're, sort of peers and at this training together, I'm trying to be polite and tolerate this, but after like 2 hours of the blah, 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 at one point, I was sitting on the couch next to her, and I'm sort of, my body language, I'm like moving away because I'm like, okay, I had enough of this lady. I am definitely like in full on shielding myself mode here at this point. Completely in a defensive mode. And she even says to me, I can tell you're a really closed off person, look at your body language. You're like leaning away from me. And she's telling me like how she's coming at me in absolute and pure love. And here I am like resisting the love. And evidently that's a sign that something was wrong with me, right? It's so funny how ridiculous people can be sometimes. But she just clearly couldn't even see that what she was doing was trying to lay a curse on me. And of course I'm resisting that. Of course I'm not going to sit there and absorb all your uninvited advice and introspection, a psychic knowing about who you think that I am. And so her telling me even that I had a demon, I was just completely rejecting this. There was no way. And what ended up happening is my good girlfriend and I were sharing the room. We had bunk beds, and that night both of us experienced like full on spiritual harassment. there was a very sort of harassing spirit in that room that night. So I woke up the next morning and I was sharing, with our instructor, and this woman happened to also be there. Whoa, what a rough night, and how there was a harassing spirit in the room. And my good friend also experienced it. And she was saying, oh yeah, so we were kind of talking about what had happened. And this woman said, see, I told you, you have a demon. So, that is another form of curse making. Well, this woman spent the entire weekend sort of doing this. I was observing from a distance. She was doing it to everybody, at every break, at every lunch, blah, 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 to everybody. Well, the instructor was picking up on it. By the second day, he actually approached her at lunch privately. Well, not privately, but in the house, when it was just, the few of us staying in the house. And because she approached me, my friend was like, okay, that's it. I'm getting away from her. I'm just having nothing to do with her. And I felt, no, I have an obligation. I'm going to call this lady out on it, because I don't think that she truly realizes what she's doing. Well, as she started in on me and I'm preparing my words, formulating my words, the instructor actually interjected and came in and interrupted and said, hey, what you're doing, you're cursing people when you're doing this, And she had no idea. She was, oh, what? I mean, she was really, that was not her intention. That was not her conscious intention. So my point of it is that people sometimes can lay curses on other people, and they don't really realize that they're doing it. And the discernment on that really comes into when you approach somebody about that and let them know what they're doing, how their response is to you, kind of tells you what their intention was and where their heart's at. And for her, I just think it was a pattern of behavior that was kind of fed out of her ego state, and she didn't even realize. And it had been going on so long that even after the instructor told her that she was doing this, I noticed she continued the rest of the weekend to do it. So even though her intention was like, she was very apologetic and she said, I had no idea, she continued to do it. And I just think it was because it was a pattern that she was ingrained in, her way of being. But she's been given the knowledge, so hopefully she can, sort of overcome that as she works on learning to not lay curses on people. Another type of cursing that can happen is like a generational cursing. And what this is sort of a family narrative. I had that in my own family of origin. It goes back at least 3, maybe 4 generations, probably even farther back than that. This sort of narrative of mental illness. And that's a form of curse, because I grew up having a certain idea about my family history, where I came from, and like I said, it involved a history and a heritage of mental illness. So that sort of laid a curse on me that I had to it was very haunting, and I had to work really hard to break free of that, just growing up my whole entire life, knowing that I had this long family history of this. And so people can experience that as well, these sort of generational curses that go way back. And that's how they tend to look, in terms of the narrative of what you've been told about who you are and what your history is, what your ancestral heritage is. But the most important thing that I really want to say about curses is that while it does happen every day and there are people that do it unknowingly, there are a lot of people too that do this willingly. And I sort of would relate them to like pigs, hogs that sort of wallow around in the mud and get a great deal of pleasure out of that. There are people that exist out there that know in some amount of consciousness, maybe not full consciousness, they're not aware that they're cursing, but on some level of consciousness, they're aware that they're creating a cognitive dissonance with people. And it's fun to them. It's fun to poke at people, to make fun of them, to mock them, to belittle them, to make them feel small. All of these things are signs of curses. Now, why I think this is so important and why I'm really sharing this video is because I've been encountering more and more, especially as I'm trying to grow my presence on YouTube, more and more of this happening on YouTube. I don't know why it's happening more and more on YouTube than I've experienced it on Facebook. I suspect it has a lot to do with like personal settings and curating your own sort of tribe. And on Facebook, my settings are much more private. I'm much more selective in curating. If at some point I wanted to become more public and have more of a public presence on Facebook, I'm sure that I would encounter that more there. But just in YouTube, I think because of the platform itself and the settings and the way that you're allowed to control that or not allowed to control that, it sort of opens you up a lot more and invites more free access to the material that you're putting out there. And then people feel like they have the right to say something more to you. And so, this is an interesting thing. I was talking to my spiritual mentor about it yesterday, actually. And I was telling her, I don't really understand how you can walk in a store and people can be so polite, nice, and just normal, right? Oh, you only have one item? Go ahead in front of me. It's fine. And that same person that you think, oh, that was really nice and kind, right? That same person is the one that's like flipping you off and cussing you out on the road, right? And they're just acting like a-holes. So I was telling her, I don't know what it is about like the car where people get in it and they act like it's somehow insulating a bubble and they just turn into monsters. And the same thing on the internet, like that computer screen in some way like acts as this buffer, this insulation, where when people are relating to each other, it's a totally different experience than what you would have one-on-one. So the things people have said to me, on YouTube, I know for a fact that they probably wouldn't say to me to my face if we were, in a store together, complete strangers. I mean, I hope to God that these people don't, talk like this to strangers in stores. They might get punched or shot. But for some reason, because it's over the internet and there's this buffer, they think that it's okay to say these things and to act like this. So my spiritual mentor says to me, well, Amy, all that sort of stuff comes out of shadow. Oh, I know, shadow. But the thing of it is, like, such crappy, horrible stuff comes out of shadow, right? I mean, it's just terrible. People, take care of your shadow business, please, because you're like the curse makers of the world, and some of you don't even realize that you're doing it. Can you just please work on your stuff? It's all right. I love you anyway. I thank you for the opportunity, for being able to actually, learn better skills on how to shield myself from the curse makers. And, it's strengthened me and empowered me in the most incredible way. So I thank you for that. So anyway, there you go. There you have it. That's what cursing is. It's not this thing that you might have thought it was. And, if you find yourself cursing other people, then that's something that you can work on. Have self-love, self-compassion. Understand that we've been taught to do this in our culture and everybody does it. So really it's just a matter now that you're aware of working on that. And realizing, that your perspective of somebody else is not their own perspective of themselves. And so you can only point out to them if they're doing something that's harmful or hurtful to you or to other people that they're doing this, and sort of how they respond to that, is an indication sort of where they're at in their own heart space and with their own, work. But we all are works in progress. We all are divine beings. We all are here for a purpose, even if that purpose is to create problems for other people. One last thing that I do want to say is that some people truly are called to engage in spiritual battle at this level. And so these people are going to, sort of go into those dark places with a flashlight to try to shine light on it, flush it out for what it is. It's a very acquired skill and it requires a great degree of discernment. So I wouldn't really recommend that just, anybody go in there and try to expose the curse makers. It definitely is a calling, and you have to be very, very strong and able to do that. So if you're not in that position, the best thing to do is just sort of step out of that curse and protect yourself and not entertain it, not allow it to even enter into you in any kind of a way. So I'm going to share with you some specific thoughts on how you can do that. So I wanted to share what I wrote attached to the article on my Facebook page, just to offer you some encouragement and some personal empowerment. I recently encountered some nasty, hateful people on YouTube, and one of the things they like to call me is old lady, or crazy old woman, or even more profane, a dried up milk cow. They apparently think this is an insult to my 43-year-old ego, playing off this patriarchal, sociopathic culture that tries to curse the wise woman. This won't ever work on me. What they really can't fathom is that I've lost my hair, including every eyelash and eyebrow hair, 3 times. I've lost both breasts, all my internal female organs, have osteoporosis, and a whole bunch of other problems from the 13 years of cancer treatment I've endured. I've nearly died from a blood clot in my jugular vein from my port and the adriamycin irritating the vein. I've experienced anaphylactic reaction to carboplatin twice. I've had cellulitis twice, have had more than a dozen surgeries, and have been hospitalized multiple times with serious complications. I've raised 3 children into adulthood and have 2 grandchildren. To get old is a celebration I couldn't even imagine I'd have the privilege of 13 years ago. And this isn't even accounting for the 9 years of domestic violence, etc., that I've lived through. So calling me old isn't an insult at all. I've earned every scar, wrinkle, and gray hair, and I actually find it an honor. This article reminds me of Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes' The Joyous Body. When she told the story of being young and seeing all the old women who would congregate at the springs, nude, their scars all blazing bright. The imagery is powerful and gifted me with a knowing of my own power and place within the Scar clan. Those are my sisters, my crone sisters. So I hope that did encourage you. And I just want to tell you that, I know and I see all the cursing that's going on. And I want to tell you that even if I don't personally agree with the content of your channel or agree with the specific thing that you're saying, the divine being in me sees the divine being in you, and that you are here for a purpose. Don't ever, ever let anybody tell you that you don't deserve to be here, that you don't deserve to have your voice, that you don't have a truth, your truth to tell, and that that's not important, that nobody cares, that nobody wants to hear it, that you're crazy, that don't let anybody lay any of those curses on you and make you doubt yourself or believe that you're anything less than here for a divine purpose. One last thing that I want to share is an affirmation that can help strengthen you against curses and protect you from curses if you're being cursed. And it goes like this. It says, I release the need to seek the approval of others and let go of any positive and negative judgments others have offered me. I know within myself the skills, talents, and gifts of my unique energy, vibration, and frequency. If I need reassurance of my greatness, I will seek the unconditional love of the angels and of Source. Another thing that you can do, in addition to the affirmations that I gave you, is just sort of step out of the narrative that's being put on you and 3 times say to yourself, I am, I am, I am. Just sort of feel into your solar plexus and know, I am, I am, I am. I know who I am. And, that sort of will restore you to that resonant, grounded place and combat against the dissonance. If you need any other more specific ideas or help with working with the curses that you feel like you've experienced in your life, reach out to me and I will do what I can to offer you suggestions and assistance. All right? I love you guys very much, and just know that from the bottom of my heart, truly, my intention here is to spread love and make the world a better place for all of us. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.